Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to Since Day One. Before we get into this video today about R. Kelly as well as his lawyer Jennifer Bonjean, and also today we have in attendance Sparkle as well as Sparkle's niece aka Jane. And before we get into this video today, you guys go ahead and like the video, comment down below, and if you are new, smash the subscribe button to take flight with us.
Fake love, I don't need it, you can keep it, that's a fact. I had to make up my mind. I took that weight on my shoulders.
Well, today is the 5th day of R. Kelly's Chicago trial, you guys. And basically what's going to be going on today is R. Kelly's lawyer, Jennifer Bonjean, will finally get her chance to cross-examine Sparkle's niece, Jane. This is Jane's second day on the stand, you guys. And if you have not heard what Jane had to say about her auntie Sparkle as well as her godfather, R. Kelly, then please go tune in to my last video so you could be caught up. Prosecution finished questioning R. Kelly's goddaughter, Jane, yesterday. So today, R. Kelly's defense team gets to question her. The jury hasn't come in yet, and federal prosecutors are requesting presiding judge Harry Leinenweber address their concern that R. Kelly's lead defense attorney Jennifer Bonjean made inappropriate comments regarding evidence discovery yesterday in front of the jury. Bonjean objects. She claims she hasn't seen what's on some of the discs that allegedly contain R. Kelly's tape, and that prosecution is being disingenuous regarding providing access to trial evidence. The government has not provided us with the clips they intend to use. We still should know what they are using from those tapes, says Bonjean. Leinenweber is playing peacemaker. He declines to make any specific ruling on this issue at this time and implies that he'll make decisions regarding use of the tapes in court as they arise. Judge Leinenweber said only the jury will be allowed to see R. Kelly's alleged infamous tapes and that they will not be shown to the public in the courtroom. He adds that audio from the tapes won't be censored, however. Jane's cross-examination is starting with the defense attorney for R. Kelly's co-defendant Milton Brown, Kathleen Leon. Brown is R. Kelly's former personal assistant. Kathleen Leon is questioning Jane about the time that Brown allegedly took her to get her R. Kelly tattoo covered up. Her strategy right out the gate seems to be to paint Brown as a fellow victim of R. Kelly, as someone who couldn't question Kelly for fear of losing his job. When R. Kelly said that Jane needed to cover up a tattoo with his name on it, Brown is the only one who drove her to the tattoo artist, Jane said. Brown's attorney trying to emphasize for jurors that R. Kelly kept his relationship with Jane strictly secret, and Brown was just an errand runner. So you have no idea if R. Kelly told Milton why you were having the tattoo covered up? All you know is that R. Kelly needed to keep his secrets secret, Brown's attorney says, and Jane confirms. Kathleen Leon ends her line of questioning for the moment, and now R. Kelly's attorney, Jennifer Bonjean, is up. She asked Jane about the relationship with R. Kelly and her testimony in 2002 before the Illinois grand jury when R. Kelly was indicted on multiple charges. R. Kelly's attorney goes on to ask Jane, "You had a relationship with R. Kelly as an adult, correct?" And Jane answers correct. Jane alleges that R. Kelly controlled her life as an adult, an assertion that Bonjean challenges by pointing out that R. Kelly paid for her college education. R. Kelly's attorney, Jennifer Bonjean, now on cross-examination, notes that as an adult, Jane continued to live with R. Kelly and his wife, Drea Kelly, for years. And when she moved out, she stayed close to R. Kelly, even though he was abusive, Bonjean says in a disbelieving tone. Jane goes on to say he wasn't abusive all the time. Jane's father continued to work with R. Kelly for years after the relationship with Jane ended. Jane testifies on cross-examination that after their breakup, they would still sometimes have intimate times together. Bonjean goes on to ask, "Even after you broke up, you and R. Kelly got together and had intimate times together?" Bonjean asked. Jane says correct, adding that R. Kelly also helped her out financially throughout the years. Jane also confirms that it was her aunt Stephanie, aka Sparkle, that leaked the alleged tape to the public. Bonjean begins pointing the finger at McDavid after some significant finger pointing by McDavid's attorney towards R. Kelly. R. Kelly also struggled with math and reading and writing. He delegated all those things to people like Mr. McDavid, Bonjean asked, and Jane confirmed. R. Kelly's attorney began showing Jane a text exchange that Jane had with R. Kelly in the lead up to the Surviving R. Kelly docuseries premiere, so late 2018, early 2019, establishing that the two were in contact relatively recently. They are a very friendly text, an invitation to her birthday party, Happy New Year greetings. Depending on how you see this, it's an extension of the long-time hold R. Kelly had over Jane as a result of his grooming. or a friendship that proves no abuse ever existed. R. Kelly's attorney Bonjean is now pointing out that Jane asked R. Kelly to come celebrate her 34th birthday with her in 2018. R. Kelly's attorney Bonjean's strategy seems to be to paint Jane as being disingenuous in her claims yesterday that she was manipulated and abused by R. Kelly by highlighting her adult relationship with him throughout the 2010s. Dennis Byron made a tweet on Twitter that says, "Attorney Jennifer Bonjean did, in my opinion, make a very plausible motion for a mistrial early on because R. Kelly co-defendant McDavid had access to privileged information that he received when he was part of R. Kelly's defense early on. In situations like this, cases are severed." Jennifer Bonjean responded and said, "Already made the motion and it was denied." Now, don't get me wrong, y'all. I don't agree with what Dennis and Jennifer is talking about right here, but I felt like it was important to put it in here just so that y'all could be aware. After Lifetime's explosive Surviving R. Kelly docuseries premiered in January of 2019, Jane sent R. Kelly messages of support. She texted him, "I love you. Don't let the devil win." R. Kelly responded with, "Yeah, I was on a major breakdown, but now I'm on a major buildup." R. Kelly's attorney goes on to say that R. Kelly wasn't trying to influence you to do anything. You were just commiserating, Bonjean said, and Jane confirmed. And commiserating means to offer sympathy. In February of 2019, the Cook County State's Attorney's Office contacted Jane. They were in possession of more tapes allegedly involving her and R. Kelly. Jane texted R. Kelly and said, "You need to call me right away or I'm making decisions on my own." R. Kelly's attorney Bonjean is interpreting that as an extortion attempt, which Jane strongly denies. "The decision I was going to make was to cooperate with the authorities because I no longer wanted to carry his lies," Jane says. R. Kelly's attorney Bonjean continued, "So when there's an investigation going on, the first person you called is Robert?" Jane says, "That's what I was used to, yes." In Jane's initial interviews with federal prosecutors in 2019, she refused to discuss a relationship with R. Kelly and refused to watch any videos, she testified. Bonjean repeatedly asking her whether that was her own decision, and she acknowledges that it was. Jane went on to say that in April of 2019, she told federal prosecutors that she wasn't sure if R. Kelly had any type of contacts with other young girls. This was untrue, she now says on the stand. "I didn't want to get other people involved, so yes, I did do that." Bonjean started hinting aggressively that Jane only changed her mind about cooperating after she learned that she could qualify for restitution, but prosecutors asked for a sidebar before the timeline there can be fully worked out. Jane says she hasn't decided whether to seek restitution. "You told an assistant state's attorney that you didn't know if R. Kelly had relationships with young girls," Bonjean says, claiming she's caught Jane in a lie between this trial and her statements preceding it. Before the prosecution had requested a sidebar, Bonjean had told Jane that she could ask for restitution if she wanted to. Jane says she asked for an immunity deal for herself and her parents prior to this trial. "For them not being truthful in 2008, I just wanted to make sure they were protected being truthful going forward," Jane says. And this is what I was telling y'all yesterday, y'all, was I was just wondering if she requested immunity for Sparkle too, because I mean, that's your auntie. You would think that you wouldn't want any of your family getting in trouble, but it seems like she's only really worried about her and her parents. R. Kelly's attorney continues and says, "Looking back, you think Sparkle pushed you on R. Kelly?" Bonjean asked. "Yes," Jane responds. Bonjean mentions that Sparkle tweeted last night accusing Jane of lying on the stand. Prosecution objects over Bonjean bringing in outside statements. And not only did Sparkle tweet about it, but she was also all on Instagram answering questions about it. Singer Sparkle denies niece's claims that she told her to rub R. Kelly's head and asked to be his goddaughter. "Lies told on me under oath." Her specific words were when someone had asked her, "Are you the aunt who had that child rub R. Kelly's head? Please say it's not you." Sparkle responds and says, "Absolutely not. I can't help the lies told on me and under oath at that. And cause your mama mad at me because y'all were forced to testify." Bonjean goes on to say, "You testified your parents didn't know about your relationship with R. Kelly until this meeting at the hotel, but your parents were actually the subject of a DCFS investigation in 2000. And Jane says they asked me if it was true and I said no. Apparently after that, you guys, the presiding judge, Lionel Weber, has called for a 15-minute recess in R. Kelly's federal trial in Chicago. R. Kelly's federal trial is back in session in Chicago. R. Kelly's defense attorney, Jennifer Bonjean, is still cross-examining R. Kelly's goddaughter, Jane. Bonjean goes on to say, you didn't want the relationship to end, and you didn't want your parents to get in trouble for anything. You didn't want R. Kelly to get in trouble for anything, correct? Bonjean asked Jane, referring to when the alleged tape leaked. Correct, Jane says. Bonjean goes on to say that Jane wanted to have a relationship with R. Kelly despite the alleged tape getting out. You did have a future relationship with him. You ended up being with him for another 10 years, Bonjean says, and Jane confirms. Jane admits that she testified untruthfully in 2002, fearing the repercussions she and her parents might have suffered if she said that it was her on the alleged tape. Bonjean is asking about Jane's immunity deal. She won't be prosecuted for past perjury if she tells the truth on the stand. The truth as determined by the government, right? Jane responds and said, I'm telling my truth. I don't know how it's determined after that. Jane testifies that the government has helped her get Section 8 housing benefits and pays travel/meal expenses related to the case. The housing benefits were because Jane felt unsafe as a cooperator, she says. Bonjean digging into Jane's immunity deal with federal prosecutors by saying no leads directly or indirectly derived from the information you provide can be used against you in a criminal prosecution, Bonjean says, which Jane confirms. Jane says that R. Kelly told her parents not to work after the alleged tape leaked, but Bonjean questions that. She points out that R. Kelly's 2002 indictment didn't go to trial until 2008, during which the time her parents did in fact go to work. Moving on to the infamous videotapes themselves, Bonjean questions if it was really Cristal that the 14-year-old Jane allegedly drank in the tapes. She brings up the possibility that it may have been water or another non-alcoholic drink, but Jane asserts that it was the champagne. They said that we are at a lull now as Bonjean searches through her notes for her next line of questioning in R. Kelly's federal trial in Chicago. The next line of questioning involves a series of text messages between Jane and Assistant State's Attorney Angel Kroll regarding Jane's pregnancy. Jane did share a pregnancy photo of herself with the former lead prosecutor on this case, which the defense has repeatedly argued is inappropriate/suspicious. They had seen me in a pretty negative light, so I thought it was good to share something positive with them, Jane says. McDavid's attorneys caused a splash last week when they said that the former lead prosecutor on the case, Angel Kroll, had communicated with the goddaughter and Chicago journalist Jim DeRogatis in a mysterious, clandestine, and totally inappropriate way. The goddaughter of R. Kelly, who is now an adult, is expected to testify that she was the underage girl on the videos and that she lied about it to investigators at the behest of Kelly and his associates. Angel Kroll left Chicago in 2020 to care for an ailing relative and is no longer handling the R. Kelly case. Prosecutors this week released the contents of the text messages between Kroll and the woman who is identified only as minor number 1. The vast majority of them have to do with scheduling times and places to meet up and have discussions. One personal text in which Kroll tells the woman a pregnancy photo of her is beautiful and glowing does not indicate anything inappropriate, prosecutors argue. The photographs in question were professional photos of minor number 1, which minor number 1 shared with many people in celebration of her joy in being an expectant mother. The reaction that Angel Kroll shared reflected nothing more than sincere happiness for a person who has suffered a great deal, but who is now experiencing great personal joy. Tuesday's motion states, the defendant's efforts to attack the government personally or discourage a testifying victim should not be countenanced. Prosecution continued and said there is also nothing inappropriate, the filing stated, about the nickname Kroll used for minor number 1 in her phone, which was Boss Baby. McDavid's attorneys, indignant, responded that prosecutors did not provide any kind of affidavit or other evidence to support their claims that everything was above board and urged the judge to make them turn over more information about what happened. Angel Kroll's contact with DeRogatis in early 2019 was very limited. Prosecutors said she had a short phone conversation with him about possibly sharing the manuscript of his book, then had a brief email exchange. She did not respond to subsequent emails or voicemails from DeRogatis, the motion states. Cruel did use a burner email, piedpiper312@gmail.com, that was attached to a name Demetrius Slovinsky, but she only did that upon the advice of Homeland Security Investigations agent who created the account, the filing stated. Prosecutors reiterated that they are not considering DayOne as a government witness in the case. DayOne, whose reporting first brought the allegations against R.Kelly to light, has previously told the Tribune that he was the one to initiate contact with federal prosecutors in an attempt to cultivate sources. The effort was unsuccessful, he said. Moreover, although defendants vaguely suggested they may call DayOne in the defense case, they offered no explanation of the testimony he might give or how that testimony would benefit the defense. Prosecutors filing states, and given the nature of DayOne's relationship to the case, it is highly unlikely that he would have any testimony beneficial to the defense. McDavid's attorney also filed a letter requesting that Cruel be made available to testify as a witness in the trial, hinting heavily that if she doesn't, jurors will be left to assume the worst about the government's motivations. And there's also been a slew of pretrial motions filed at the last minute, hints that a hot-blooded legal brawl is ahead. Prosecutors, defense attorneys, and Judge Harry Leinenweber have only a few days to resolve them before trial begins on Monday. And so now we're back on the benefits. The examination fits a pattern where Bonjean lists out all the things the government paid for, such as housing, a trip out of state. And Jane says it was all rooted in fear for her safety. I'm sorry, y'all, but why does it sound like to me that Jane don't have any money left from dealing with R.Kelly for the last 20 years? R.Kelly is broke and Jane is broke. I'm trying to see what's really going on. Where the money? I guess it really ain't no more left. Redirect examination from prosecutors who are having Jane confirm that the huge majority of text messages between Jane and the former R.Kelly prosecutor were just about scheduling matters. Bonjean also says that Cruel allowed Jane to get out of Dodge by paying for her to go to Florida. Jane confirms this, but also says getting out of town was as much about her personal safety as anything else while the Surviving R. Kelly docuseries was being filmed. And with that being said, Bonjean wraps up her questioning. Prosecution comes back in for a follow-up, and Jane says again that it was R. Kelly who told her to keep quiet about their relationship when she was 15 and 16. The prosecution asked Jane where she was staying during R. Kelly's 2008 trial, to which she answers hotels. She wasn't supposed to be seen with R. Kelly during the trial, Jane says. Jane again confirms that she had multiple encounters with R. Kelly when she was 14, 15, and 16. With that, prosecution finishes its follow-up questions and Jane is off the stand. Prosecutors are now gearing up to show jurors the videos that Jane says show R. Kelly and her when she was 14. And now that Jane is off the stand, in all, she testified for more than 6 hours over 2 days at the R. Kelly trial. And now they're saying that the videos will apparently be shown after a lunch break. Prosecutors are arguing that the courtroom should be cleared of spectators for that, since the jurors' monitors are partially visible from the spectators' seats. Judge Harry Leinenweber says that it's not necessary to clear out the courtroom, but spectators will be directed to move out of view of the screens. Bonjean's cross-examination of R. Kelly's goddaughter Jane hit a technical snag when she was trying to show Jane her text messages with R. Kelly without revealing certain identifying information such as her phone number. After making what they thought were all the necessary redactions, R. Kelly's defense team put the text up on the screen, but apparently have forgotten to black out one portion that contained Jane's first and last name. After it had been up on the screen for a few seconds, a loud whisper went up at the defense table and the exhibit was quickly taken down. This whole entire time, I've really been having a hard time understanding why they not calling her by her first and last name, because it's not like the public don't already know who she is, but I'm gonna just be respectful and call her Jane, since that's what y'all want me to say. At one point on cross-examination, Jane was asked whether she threatened to go public unless R. Kelly paid her. In response, Jane slowly screwed on the cap of her water bottle, paused, and said very calmly, "That's not correct." And now that it's after lunch, you guys, they're about to start back up in the R. Kelly trial, where prosecutors are playing 30 minutes of the alleged infamous videotape for the jury. My colleague in the courtroom says that they've brought in large fabric screens to block out the view of spectators. Homeland Security Investigator Special Agent Melissa Sifferman is back on the stand talking about the 3 videos obtained as part of the investigation. Video number 1 is the original scene at the center of R. Kelly's 2008 trial in Cook County. Videos number 2 and 3 are other scenes that also allegedly include Kelly and Jane engaging in relationships. relations. So then it goes on to say, so even after the judge ruled against prosecutors and refused to close the courtroom for the playing of the videos, they still asked him right before they started playing them to cut off the feed to the overflow room. Now the journalists are sitting around in there in radio silence. No reason for this. Lyman Weber clearly said the issue was not people hearing the audio. He also said, where is the press supposed to go? They are entitled to cover it. So we'll wait patiently for the explanation, I suppose, but really there isn't any. A journalist says they just stepped out of the R.Kelly courtroom where prosecutors first played videos to jurors. The officials placed high screens around the jury and turned around monitors so media could not see the evidence at the heart of the trial and could not see the jurors' reaction to it. Though media was blocked from seeing the footage that R. Kelly jurors just watched, sound from the videos was audible. A girl is heard asking the man, "Daddy, do you still love me?" Prosecutors say the man is R. Kelly, who is heard giving explicit instructions to the girl. R. Kelly's attorney, Bonjean, asked the Homeland Security agent, "How many tapes do you have in your possession associated with this case?" There's silence. R. Kelly's attorney says, "Can you answer?" The Homeland Security agent says, "I'm sorry, I was waiting for the objection." The judge says, if there is no objection, I'm not going to rule. So yesterday, after Jane, R. Kelly's goddaughter, as well as Sparkle's niece, got on the stand to testify, y'all remember her saying that Sparkle was the one who told her to sit in R. Kelly's lap and rub his bald head and asked him to be her godfather. And y'all remember early on in the video when I had showed y'all Sparkle's response on social media? Well, while I was waiting for the jurors to view the videotape, and before we got back to the information at hand, Jane's aunt, Stephanie, aka Sparkle, put out a video explaining to us that the testimony that her niece gave yesterday on the stand was false and a straight lie.
Yesterday was a day I didn't think I'd ever see.
After I learned my niece was cooperating with the investigators, I prayed and I thanked God. She absolutely doing the will of her mom. This is another form of the terrible decision making of her mom. Robert was given the opportunity to have his own record label. I introduced my sister, my brother-in-law, and my niece to Robert at CRC Studios in '97 in hopes of landing my niece a career as an artist in this industry.
Not a concert, as she testified.
I didn't stop there. I asked Robert to check out my brother-in-law, who played the guitar, and other family members in hopes he'd assist them with their musical careers as well.
Saying this again to say not all that you heard yesterday from my niece is true. To testify that I had my niece sit on Robert's lap and rub his head and have her ask him to be her godfather is an absolute fucking lie. Another lie. Robert and I were never in a romantic relationship.
While the videos were obscured from view, courthouse observers could hear much of the audio. The alleged victim, who has been referred to in court by the name Jane, could be heard speaking in a high and very young sounding voice. On one clip, she refers to her 14-year-old private part at least 4 times. On another, she repeats the phrase, as does the man alleged to be R. Kelly. "Get on your knees," Jane is told in another clip. "Daddy, do you still love me?" she responded. "Of course I do," was the answer. Jane could be heard getting directions at several points on what she should do. "I said don't move," the man alleged to be Kelly said on one clip. "I'm sorry," Jane responds. Testifying now in the R. Kelly trial is Jonathan Sitchie, a Customs and Border Patrol agent. He's telling the jury about who traveled with Jane and her parents to Mexico and the Bahamas in 2002 when the tape first went public. And the feds say that R. Kelly sent Milton June Brown to keep tabs on Jane and her family.
Milton! You bogus girl, Milton!
According to flight records shown to the jury, Milton Brown indeed returned to the U.S. from the Bahamas on February 21st, 2002. The defense is also pointing out that Milton Brown traveled to and from the Bahamas 5 other times as well. And that's a wrap, you guys, for the R. Kelly trial for the week. We've had 8 witnesses so far, and I'll be back with more video updates for you guys Monday at 5 p.m.
So long, sleeping from sofa to sofa. Now I'ma step on these little bitty bitches. Hit some brand new Gucci loafs. Some Gucci walking. I got tired of eating Big Mama's chicken. Now it's business when I walk.